Over the last couple of days, a lot's been made about what the Chicago Bulls could do this offseason, particularly in the draft to move up. On today's episode, I want to talk about how the Bulls can gain more assets with using what they have on this roster, which is considerable when you look at the expiring contracts. We're going to talk a little bit about that. Plus, I got two more sleepers that could go in the second round for the Chicago Bulls and dive into a mailbag from Vaughn. We're going to get to all that and more right after this. What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host there, Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go and get into this content today, y'all. And I want to get back into this. So last night we dropped an episode on the chances of the Bulls trading up into the draft, specifically with the Philadelphia 76ers, as we know that draft pick is available and that they are looking for a star, which they're likely to probably crash out on. And then could they make a pivot towards a player like a Kobe White where you could sweeten the deal with number 12, something like that? I don't think you're walking out of that deal with the number 3 and the number 12. Personally, I don't think we have the level of player that can necessitate that. But using Kobe or Io, the Bulls could maybe do something a little bit interesting there, right? But with that said, I want to take a look at what the Bulls can do, right? What do they have at their disposal to be a third team in a trade, right? That's kind of what I want to focus on today, mainly because there's going to be some star level movement around here, whether that's Kevin Durant, whether that's Giannis Antetokounmpo, whether that's Devin Booker, whether that's, name your player. There are some big names that could be. The Jaylen Brown thing, I don't believe that report, so we're not going to get into that. But even if he were to come available, right, I think that the Bulls are in a prime position to be able to be a third team in a trade. And the reason why I say that is this, right? When you look at it, Nikola Vučević, unrestricted, $21 million. Kevin Huerter, unrestricted free agent after next season, $17.9 million. Zach Collins, unrestricted free agent at the end of next season, $18 million. Kobe White, $12.8 million, unrestricted free agent. I want to see him stay, though, but for the nature of being even, he is an unrestricted free agent as well. Ayo Dosunmu, $7.5 million, unrestricted free agent at the end of next season, right? So the Bulls have, if I'm doing my calculations right, that's close to $80 million in unrestricted in expiring contracts, right? And so that puts you in that position. Even if you want to remove Kobe and Ayo from that conversation, which I wouldn't be mad at, that removes $19 million. It still puts you over $60 million in expiring contracts of players that probably aren't part of your long-term future. Nikola Vučević, we've already seen that, not part of your long-term future. Kevin Huerter at 26 years old, you can make a conversation that he could be, but like I've said before, you got to give up something good if you want to start building a future. And I like Kevin Huerter, but Kevin Huerter can help a lot of teams. Zach Collins, same thing, right? $18 million can definitely help your team, but that's almost $60 million in expiring contracts. Not many GMs would sit on their hands and allow that to expire without doing something, right? So even if the Bulls aren't making the big move, the huge move to go out there and get a Jonathan Kuminga, maybe they're not making the huge move to get a Giannis. They're not, by the way. Don't even start that shit with me today. Jokes. But so even if they're not looking to make that deal, what we've seen, right? We've seen it with the Spurs being involved in as a third team with us twice. Well, they got De'Aaron Fox. Maybe we were the third team then, and Zach LaVine was the third player. But like we saw, even with the earlier DeMar DeRozan sign-in trade, right, which they got Harrison Barnes, that was a sign-in trade, right? So it's funny how those three teams all collabed twice last year, right, on the DeMar DeRozan sign-in trade, and then again on Zach LaVine and De'Aaron Fox deal. That's another thing in this, right? You want to start looking at teams that you've done deals with before. That is a thing in the NBA. Once you build up a repertoire with a team and have talked and negotiated trades with them, sometimes you go back to those wells, right? And so maybe it could be the Knicks as if they make it a part of another deal. But the Bulls have a prime opportunity to be the third team in a trade. And what the going rate is, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, I've looked around the NBA, typically being the third team in a trade, you're either getting one of a few things back. You're getting a veteran piece that's either an expiring contract, only a year or so left on their deal, you're getting a heavily protected first-round pick, or you're getting multiple second-round picks. And so even if the Bulls don't want to make the large swing this offseason, they still are in a position where they can get future assets. And I think that's what you have to start doing, is stacking those assets, right? Especially if the Bulls are going to be a better than a playing team next year, which they still need to show on the court that they can be. But if they end up being that, stacking multiple firsts, even if they're at the lower end of the first round, or stacking multiple seconds, that gives you things and throw-ins on deals to where you can get creative, right? So I really would want to see AK and the Bulls front office get creative this offseason. Like, listen to what's going on there. There are going to be some teams that need a third team to dump off some salary. You have a position. Now, I know that the summer of 26 plan is still there. I know AK is going to maintain that flexibility. And we've talked about how if the Bulls, depending on what they're sending out, can maintain still the ability to go after a big free agent in the summer of 26, even if they do take on a larger contract that's not like 4 years down the road. That's why Paul George's contract is not one that I'd be willing to, ask to obtain, even to get the number 3 pick. But, we'll see what the Bulls do there. But I think overall, the number of expiring contracts that we have, when you have to be active, right? And I hate to put that on AK, because we all know anytime he's almost in a position to do anything else that normal GMs would do, he doesn't do. And that's just the unfortunate part of the game. But hopefully we start seeing a little bit difference from AK there. And, there's a couple of different things that the Bulls can do. A couple of episodes ago, I talked about the conservative, the little bit less conservative, and then the aggressive moves that the Bulls could make. And I think to add into that, kind of the mid tier, like less conservative, but not, I wouldn't necessarily call it aggressive either, is to be that third team in a trade. If any of these stars are moved, or any of these big contracts are moved, the Bulls are in a position to help facilitate that, almost better than any other team, right? They have all their first-round picks. They got second-round picks in every draft coming up. You got the expiring contracts to get it done. You may even have some younger players to throw in there as well that are also expiring contracts, or at least not huge contracts, in Julian Phillips and Dalen Terry, as much as I like those guys, right? So the Bulls have tons of flexibility here. Are they going to use it? That's another question here for the Chicago Bulls, and that's where a lot of people, myself included, are going to have some doubts about how aggressive this team could be. And I'll also say another thing that this team could do that's aggressive but not like overly aggressive is, listen, Brooklyn has 4 picks in the first round, 4 of them. If I'm the Chicago Bulls and there's a player that I want to get back into this, and you can wait, right? You don't have to necessarily make your swing early on or make it now, but wait to see how the draft goes. If there's a guy that you like on your board, and the Brooklyn Nets at 26 and 27, they're sitting there, they still have both their first-round picks, make a call. See how you can get one of those guys. See what you can. Is the Portland pick enough? It may be, right, to trade back into that and get one of those picks. Get aggressive. You want to build your future. You said that you want fans to be patient with you. Show that you're continually moving, that you're continually trying to improve this team by adding talent. I think that the Bulls fandom would get behind it with this let's go young and develop thing if you showed more aggressiveness about going out and getting those young pieces that we're hearing about in this draft that could end up still being a solid player to a star if you develop them, right? The development aspect, we'll get to all of that, but I would really love to see the Chicago Bulls use what they have here. We are not this team that's our hands are tied like we were in prior years. I think a lot of Bulls fans have just come to automatically think with this team is that, oh, well, we don't have the assets to make XYZ move. We don't have that. No, you do. This is the time period where you do. Now you have to have a partner, right? And that's the thing that goes into this. You have to have a partner to get things done. But I think that the Bulls sit in a position where you can have that, because of what you have here is alluring to other teams depending on what they're trying to do here. And so let's see if we have a Bulls team that is actually going to get a little bit more aggressive, because AK, it's time, my boy. It's time. So let's see what AK does, man. Let's hope that this is a time where AK starts looking like what he was when he first came to this team, where he made a series of moves over the first 16 months of him being here as the president of basketball operations, where it looked like he picked a vision and he was moving aggressively towards that vision. Let's start doing that again, in my opinion. But with that said, I want to talk about a couple of players. You guys know we've been going through some of these draft these draft prospects that are now kind of lower first in second round. Towards the end of this week, we'll start getting my best of list, my best of players in the first round, my best of second round picks. We'll start doing some of that here coming up. But got to talk about all the players before we get there. And the player that I want to talk about today is a player that could go anywhere between the lower end of the first round and into the second round. That's Adou Thiero. This is a guy out of Arkansas, small forward, 6'8", 222 pounds, legit almost 7-foot wingspan as well. When you look at this guy, he's again a long-term mate that could pair with Matas Buzelis, right? If you go center with your number 12 pick, which seems likely, right? You bringing in a guy in Thiero who what he shows as a defender is great, right? High energy player, could be a lob threat, not a very good shooter yet. Those shooting mechanics are looking a little rocky, and I have my doubts on how well that he could develop as a shooter at any point in time with the mechanics that he has there. But here's the thing. He's so young, he's so undefined that getting him with a guy like Wes Unseld Jr., getting with a guy like Dan Craig, these two guys that have been really good at developing players over their coaching careers, I like both these guys. And I think that they can bring a whole I like Adou and what he can bring to this team. Again, when you're looking towards the end of first round, beginning of second round, you're looking at a couple of things, right? In my personal opinion, what you're looking for is either somebody who you feel has ridiculous upside to where you can still develop them and they could, at minimum, be a starter to a high-end rotational player for you. Or you're going with somebody who has a lower floor, but you're looking at them and saying, listen, I don't know what they're going to turn into long-term, but day one, like a Johnny Broom, day one, they're going to come into this league and be a 8-8 guy off the bench like I think Johnny Broom could be, right? You're looking at those two things. Thiero as well, at being a junior, 6'8", like I said, 15 points per game in his last year in college, 5.8 rebounds, 1.9 assists. He did that on almost 55% shooting. The 3-point, 25%, he's a 28% three-point shooter for his career. But rebounding, solid, especially for position, 5.8 rebounds last year. And personal fouls, 2.6. Think he's going to get that down, but he doesn't really turn the ball over, only averaging 1.1 turnovers for his college career. This, like I said, he first 2 years in Kentucky. He moved to Arkansas. Thiero is a guy that I like. I like him, especially if you can get him in the second round, that's the tremendous value. If you can get him in low end of the first round, you still got to make sure you're investing in him. I think that he's not as raw of a prospect as what we've seen some other players be with that. Some mocks have him going low first. Some mocks have him going early to mid-second round. I think that's the sweet spot for Thiero. If you can get him in the second round of this draft, he offers tremendous upside. The question is what he's going to be at the NBA and if that shot. Same question I have for Matas, right? Is if the shot never develops, who is he, right? And not to say that the shot can. Again, I have my questions about the shot developing for sure, but I like to look at it and say, all right, what if the shot never develops? Who is this guy at the NBA level? And I see him as a switchable defender that can probably guard 2, 3s, and 4s at the next level, which is really important to guard the wing and both forward positions. I see him as a high-energy guy as well that can get out and run in transition for you. And I also see him as a guy that's going to take smart shots, right? He seems like a player that's smart and understands his limitations and plays within the confines of the game. He never took over 10 shots per game, but yet, again, averaging 15 points, only 9.5 shots. That's solid production, right? For those that my THT lovers in the crowd, you for example, THT gets you 9 shots for 10 points, right? Now that's college. College production is going to be a little bit different than NBA production, but I think that there's something with this kid that even if his shot never really materializes to be a great shot, I think he still offers a lot for you. Now, I do think, in fairness, that there's some other players in the second round of this draft that I would personally like to see well before we drafted Thiero. Some of the guys I talked about yesterday, right? I think like a Drake Powell, I would take him before Thiero every day of the week. Maxime Reynaud, I'll take him every day of the week before Thiero, right? These are guys that I'll take. Hugo Gonzalez, if he goes into the second round, I'll take him every single day before Thiero. But can't deny that the upside is there for Thiero. It just really depends on how much that you can mature out of that. And like I said, the question that I like to look at and say is that if he never develops the shot, if that just did not come for him, who can he be at the NBA level? And I look at him and I say, it's a player that I think could still be a really solid bench rotational piece for you at minimum. I like the kid. I think he has really good upside for that position pick. Let me know what you guys think down below. All right, let's get into the next player that I want to cover. Only doing 2 today. Yaxel Lendenborg. This is a guy, 22 years old, power forward center combo out of UAB. And again, he's kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum of Thiero. Even though Thiero's 21 years old, I think he's still raw enough to where you see that there's still a lot that you can uncover in this game. Yaxel, to me, is a player that still has, of course, room to develop. Make no mistake about it. But 17 and 11 last year as a senior. He was 4th in the nation in rebounds per game, tied for that, 52% shooting from the field. And guess what, though? A career 35% three-point shooter. And while I don't want every center to take a bunch of threes, I do want my center to be able to hit wide open threes if they find themselves. That keeps the defense honest. Yaxel is a guy that I think can develop it if you leave him out, if you rotate down on a guard, things like that. I think he can hit a couple of threes for you. I don't want to see that become a big part of his game or anything like that, but I do think he was 33% first year. He was 35% his second year at UAB. I think that you keep watching that. For his career, the 2 years at UAB, 15.8 points per game, did that on 51% shooting. This is just an effective player. And again, kind of like with Johnny Broome, he's effective in a lot of areas that I think can affect the game of basketball positively. 1.7 steals per game, 1.8 blocks per game. That's after 2.1 his first year at UAB. Turnovers, he does average over 2 turnovers per game, but I think we have the ball handlers that'll be able to help him out there to where he's not left out on an island. But Yaxel Lendenborg, I like this kid, man. I like his game. The more and more tape I watch of him, you see that he has more of a unique skill set than I think what people are really realizing. The 7'3" wingspan is going to be really important there for him as well because, again, he's not the type of player. He's 6'9.5" to around 6'10", but I like him. I think he brings some playmaking, really good rebounding, and defensively, right? Kind of like with Thiero as well, how Thiero's skill is defensive. Lendenborg, Yaxel, listen, defensively, I like him as well. I do think also that despite his size, he gets out in fast breaks. He understands how to operate in space as well. Some of the things like if he's forced to kind of rotate out, close out on shooters in the mid-range of the three, that can be a little troubling for him at times. But I think that he has really good basketball IQ. And that's the thing that I would also be willing to bet on in the into the first round, beginning of the second round. I'd be willing to bet on somebody with really good basketball IQ. I like this kid. I think he can make a lot of sense for the Chicago Bulls here if he's there in the second round. But let me know what you guys think. With that said, let's go ahead and get into the mailbag. We got one. And again, with us going over draft prospects, I expect to hear from a lot of you guys over the week. We won't necessarily wait till the end of the week to play all the mailbags on Saturday like we always do. But, we'll get into it. Let me know. But this one is from Vaughn.
What's up, Hayes? This is Vaughn. So, I know you've seen me in the Discord lately, posting about, that Portland pick that's in front of us. And, I know we're talking about AK here, and I'm probably being too optimistic, probably going to sit here, kill my hopes and dreams on this. But I am curious on what you would feel about this trade idea. Because I think we should look to get back into the draft again. And what better spot than the spot right before our pick with a team who we actually own one of their picks. So, I'm looking at how they have a player like Matisse Thybulle, who is a player option for about $11.5 million. We can assume he picks that. I'm going to assume they picks that up, and then maybe we can work out a deal here in the end. So I'm thinking we give them Kevin Huerter, the 2026 Portland pick that we own from them, and we give them a 2027 first round pick, either top 10 protected, maybe top 5 protected if they really, really want to make a good offer. The Trailblazers, they give us Matisse Thybulle, and they give us the number 11th pick from this year's draft. So that way we have number 11 and 12. We can solve both problems that we have, get a wing, maybe get Carter Bryant. And then, at number 12, I'm big on Thomas Sorber. So if we could walk away from, 2 players like that on the wing and the center, that would be great. And then the Trailblazers get complete control of their assets again. Obviously, in this idea, I'm thinking Matisse Thybulle is like a person that they buy out or waive or whatever, and just, eat the $11 million for that 1 year. But, let me know what you think about this trade idea, because I see potential in it. And, the Timberwolves did it when they got into the draft last year for Rob Dillingham. They traded the 2031 unprotected first round pick and a 2030 first round pick swap, which was only number 1 protected. So that's a little bit more, but they went to get number 8 and, you know, they didn't own another team's pick. So, you know, let me know what you think. I think it'd be great to get number 11, get that Portland pick if possible. But, you know, it depends on what Portland wants. I just noticed they have a lot of wings on that team. So maybe they want that, but maybe they don't. Who knows? But let me know what you think. All right. Peace.
All right. So you got the Portland pick going back to Portland, a 2027 first-round pick, and Kevin Huerter. We get Thibault and 11. Here's the hitch in what you said, because I think the trade at a base is a pretty good offer, pretty good trade. But that would mean that Portland is out of the first round in this draft completely. I don't know if Portland is in a position of where they're willing to get completely out of the first round. I just don't know that. And that's the one problem that I see with this trade that you presented here is that it leaves Portland without a first round pick. I don't think in this draft Portland doesn't want to have a first round pick. Personal opinion, right? Now, if you're doing all that just to trade up for one spot, then it's not worth it. I think a lot hinges on, does Portland want to stay in the first round of this draft? If they do, this trade ain't going to happen. Unless they make a subsequent deal, they move Jeremy Grant, they move somebody else to get back into the first round. But I think that alone, the Portland Trailblazers then no longer having a first round pick, I think that puts them out. My personal opinion, right? But I think you cooked up a solid enough trade for sure to where you've looked at what the Portland Trailblazers could get back in having their own first round pick. They get their mobility back in that case. You get off Matisse Thybulle if he picks up that option. But I think just the one thing that you're missing there is Portland's going to want to be in the first round of this draft, I believe. And then you're not giving them 2 picks in the first round in 2026, which is another deep draft. They're not recouping that until 2027. So I think that puts you in a spot where the Trailblazers probably aren't going to do that deal. But let me know what you guys think down below on that. Do you think Portland would do this deal? Vaughn is really good at coming up with that. Shout out to Vaughn. But with that said, man, that's my time for today. Make sure you guys are following us at Bull Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns. BullCentralPod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the number 1 spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, but that's thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See you ready for Ken, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.